Hi everyone, Paul at ISM. Welcome to part 5 of our car modelling techniques guide. So in part 4 we covered clear coat, so I showed the 2K process from start to finish, prepping the body all the way through to clear coating it, and it came out absolutely lovely. That's going to off gas, well not off gas, it's going to cure for 2 days now. After that we can flat it with some 12,000 grade micro mesh like we did when we were cleaning up the primer, and then give it a really good polish up with some of the Novus polish. But in the meantime, we're going to crack on with the running gear. Now, the running gear is what I class as anything really underneath the car. So the braking system, transmission, suspension, yada yada yada, etc. etc. So we're going to start on all that today. We're just going to paint the chassis, glue the roll cage together, which I'll show that, gluing it all together, and get those other body parts painted. I won't show the painting process because it's the same as in part 2, but I will show the assembly of that roll cage. Like I said, we're going to show priming, metal coats, wash, assembly of all that running gear and get everything ready underneath the car. That'll then lead into part 6, which will cover the interior, which will cover the seats, seat belts, decals inside, so on and so forth, and then we'll deal with the interior in that one. So we'll have one part on the running gear, one part on the interior. I did think about combining them both, but I think it's better to go a bit more in depth and cover as much as I can in each part. So there we go. So we're at least halfway through the build. Now, if you're all building along, let's see some build pictures. It'd be nice if anybody is. I don't know if anyone's planning to, but it'd be good to see everybody else's process as well. And there we are. So I think we'll head on over to the bench and get started on today's video. Okay, so we've got all the chassis, roll cage and partial shell components cut off the sprues, and these are ready for cleanup, which I'll run through in a minute. Now in the last part we clear coated the body, and this is how it's looking now. So it's been curing for a couple of days and it's looking really nice. It's got that real nice wet look, and once we're happy it's fully cured, at least 48 hours for me, the longer the better. We'll give it a full go over with the 12,000 micro mesh again like we did with the primer, and then we'll give it a really good polish with the Novus polish. So like I said, we've still got these components to paint, so these need priming and painting just like the bodywork. No 2K on these, but what we're going to do first is show a little bit of cleanup on the side of the body and then assembling the roll cage. So when you go through instructions, double check which part needs to be the same body colour and pick them out, and now is the time to paint them in my opinion. So it's basically all the roll cage components, which is several, the chassis itself and that rear partial shelf, kind of like boot bulk head kind of thing. So there's several locator points on the side of the chassis, and these just need cleaning up prior to priming and painting. Same with the roll cage, and we'll very quickly run through cleaning them up. So what we need is a range of sanders, and luckily I've got the UMP sanders at hand. That's Ultimate Modern Products. That's actually myself and Lee's own business. The link to our website is in the description below, and we sell very, very high quality sanders. So we're checking where we need to sand. We've got our 400 grade thinny stick, and we're just lightly going over the nubs and up and down the side. We're then going to grab another sander. So don't use a sponge sander on flat edges, stick to your thinny sticks. The sponge sanders will conform and roll over the edges, causing a roll over. So stick to the thinnies. So we start off the 400 and we're now on to the 800. The 400 is yellow, the 800 is orange. And we're just lightly going over till we're happy. We've now got the 1200 grit. You can tell it's a 1200 because it's a lot smoother than the 240, which are both white cord. And again, no real pressure. Letting the sander do the work, using our finger to check and our fingernail. Give it a light buff over, and then we're going to finish off with the buffer. So the green side first. Just lightly going over again, and then we're going to flip it around and do a final polish with the white. There we go, quick check, all is good. Okay, so now we've got the upper part of the roll cage. Now it's going to need clean up on several points. Not only are there sprue points to clean up, there are also seam lines all along each side. Inside and outside, literally every single surface there's a seam line. and it's well worth taking care of. It looks better once it's sprayed and does a more thorough job of the bodywork. So, like I said, there's a couple of sprue points on the side. Be careful holding this, it is very easy to snap. I've been there, done it before. So we're going to use a 400 grit UMP thinny stick and just gently roll it over, like so. By rolling it rather than sanding from side to side, we don't get a flat spot. Keep checking it with your finger as you go, as we did on the side, and once we're happy that it's gone, we can then come in with a thinning sponge. This is our 240 thinning sponge, and give it a go over. Just methodically all around. It doesn't take a lot of work at all, but literally the seams are everywhere. Like I say, you can leave it if you wish, but I think it's worthwhile just taking care of it. It's a quite a prominent part of the body. You can see it through the windows. So it takes 5-10 minutes to clean. Once you've sanded it, come back with your buffer again with the green side, then the white. Give it a clean, and job done. And it's a case of getting all around the body, all around the roll cage, until you're happy that those seams are gone. But literally every inner and outer surface has them. But 10 minutes work, you'll be done, no problem at all. Now use the thinny one buffer for getting inside the smaller areas, and our new customizable sanders are ideal for getting inside these hard to reach areas. So cut to shape on an angle or a thin strip. There you go, there's one, that's a yellow 400. That allows you to get right into the corners and deal with all those tricky parts where the sponge sanders won't fit because of their height. Like I say, a well worthy addition to your array of sanders, and it will make short work of these seams. Another way of doing it is you can use your knife. If you can't get right into the areas, or you don't have any of these sanders, you can use the knife blade to scrape away at the seam. Now, be careful don't cut yourself, number one. Number two, it's not the best way of doing it because you are left with a flat edge, and it creates a lot of mess as well. Okay, so we cleaned up all the components of the roll cage, and these are now ready for gluing together. We've got some Tamiya Extra Thin, which is mixed 50-50 with MEK Plastweld. Well, Plastweld contains MEK, and it's available from most smaller shops. I've mixed it 50-50. That makes the glue a lot hotter, dries a lot quicker, and it deals with any seam lines a lot better. Because it's a lot hotter, it melts the plastic more, and I think it's just a more effective glue. Used on its own, it evaporates very quick, but mixed 50-50 with Tamiya Extra Thin, it dries quite nice and a little bit slower, but still a lot hotter. So what we're going to do, you're going to use the car chassis as a kind of jig/template to hold the roll cage together whilst we glue it. So I'm just checking some components where they fit. Popping that in the back, you can see where some of these components go now. And what we're going to do, we're going to try and glue all the roll cage together without gluing it to the car, because I want to be able to take this off and spray it separately. So we're just popping some pieces in, and you're going to need like 3 pairs of hands now to try and hold bits and glue at the same time. But it's worth doing, it's an easy way of assembling, and you know it's going to fit. So we grab one of the side parts. Like I say, they've all been cleaned up as we showed before. Pop it in the side part. Get all the locator points together. There'll be several on different parts, so just bear in mind they're all in the correct place before gluing. There we go, just checking it's all in place. Then we grab a little bit of the Tamiya Extra Thin. Coming closer to have a look. There we go, just run a little bit over the seam. That will get to work straight away and start melting it. There we go, there's one side on. So we'll allow it to dry for a good 10 minutes, and then we should be able to take the roll cage out in one piece. Just gluing the central bar to that side as well. We'll get that again later on. Coming in with the right hand piece now, sorry. Again, popping it in the locator holes in the bottom, front and back. And then you can see those two spars on the left. One locates there and one locates at the back. So we're going to pop a little bit of the glue on there. Yeah, on that bit there. Mind your fingers, mind nothing's touching. Don't load the glue up. Don't want it everywhere. Just enough so capillary actions around the entire piece. Hold it, give it a little squeeze, and that should be enough to hold it in place. Then the back pieces, be careful here, don't apply a lot of glue, otherwise it will stick to the chassis, like mine did a little bit. Just seeing a bit. Again, a little bit of glue, a little bit of a squeeze, job done. Just making sure we're located in place. Like I said, because it's hotter, it evaporates a bit quicker, so it dries a bit quicker as well. I'm going to zoom out a bit to get this top piece in. So it's a large piece with several places of contact. So make sure they're all in place before you commit to glue. So we've got one there. One there. So two on each side. So we're just going to pop a little bit of glue on the top, just because they're a bit difficult to glue at the back. And we'll pop those in, locate the top part, and glue those in. Like I say, using the chassis as a bit of a jig is a good way of assembling the roll cage. And if you leave it for 10 minutes or so, the glue will be dry enough to take the roll cage off, and then it can all be sprayed separately. Which makes it a lot easier to paint. Trying to get all the paint and angles in there whilst it's all attached to the car is a bit of a pain, as is later on getting the interior parts in. So I like to leave this off right until all the interior is done, after the seats, and then we're done. So even with careful gluing, it can still get stuck, but it's still soft enough to get off, and there we go, off we go. Now when you're taking it off, if you see anything move, or you think anything's moved, pop it back on and just let it sit in place till the glue is fully dry. So there we go, this has all been primed now and painted. Primed in UP white again and painted in the Zero Paint blue we used in part 2. So just checking fitment is still good. And it is. Looks good, fits well. Just double checking all this. I'd rather fix this now than later on. And there we are. So no problems there at all. Time well spent. Underneath all painted as well. Again, underneath, making sure you get all the correct angles and every area covered, as well as the interior. It's quite important. So there we go. There's all those components ready. So we've got some parts on the roll cage that need painted in black, which is these. 2 on top, 1, 2 each side, and they are cushioning. So they get painted in like a black or a grey colour, and the sides for the doors as well. Now we grab the instructions. Just a quick double check, and there we go. We go to the front, and I'll cover some of the parts we're going to cover now. So we're going to cover all the transmission, so all those parts there and those components, all the brakes as well, and the 4-wheel drive system, suspension system near the front and back, and then we've got the interior and what have you, which we'll deal with in part 6. So multiple components to deal with, but like I said, today we're going to deal with all the running gears. Plenty to do in part 6, as you can see. Certainly going to keep us busy, and I like to do this, as I say, once the clear coat is curing. You have a couple of days to work on before you can touch it, so this is the time I choose to do it. So we're going to orientate the car chassis the right way. This all needs hand painting, as does the prop shaft and some of the rear sections. So we're going to start cutting off the running gear parts. Now I will cut off the interior parts as well, bag them up to get these sprues out of the way. But we're just going to go around systematically, check all the parts off, cut them off. We go right up to the edge of the parts with the cutters because they're good quality Tamiya cutters, so I'm confident they won't ruin the part, and then they'll be cleaned up just in the same way that roll cage was and the chassis, ready for assembly and priming. So there's a couple of parts on the rear suspension that need gluing together. I've already done one there. As you can see, those two parts are glued together. We're using the exact same Tamiya glue as we were using before, mixed with the plastic weld. So we're going to pop them in place, check everything fits first. And once we're happy, grab some glue, mind your fingers as always, run some over, be quite generous without going overboard, because what you can do after a couple of minutes of the glue melting the plastic, give it a little squeeze, and that will fill in some of the gaps which are there. Now if you want, you can fill the parts, you can really go to town, make sure they're absolutely spotless, but because they're underneath and the glue will get rid of most of it, I'm just going to fill it and lightly sand it to take care of it. See, careful with your glue. I should have my UMP glue holder, but it's out of shot unfortunately because I moved the glue for the camera shot. But this is the glue part I did earlier, and those ones have just been done. So about a minute. Give it a little bit of a squeeze. There we go, and then we'll let that sit that to one side and allow it to dry. Okay, we've got the exhaust. This has got the exact same type of seams that the roll cage had. So we're going to grab our 240 grey thinning sponge again and just give it a light go over, exactly like we did with the roll cage. Then give it a buff up and job done. Okay, so the ends of the exhaust, while they are hollowed out, they are not actually hollow. It just looks like it is. So what we're going to do, we're going to use a pin vise and some drill bits. Starting off with a 1mm drill bit, we're going to drill the very centre as a pilot hole. As you can see, the indentation is there, but when you look close, you can blatantly see it's not been hollowed out. So mark in the centre, put a little mark in, check that you're in the centre, and using some light pressure, slowly drill out. And this is just a bit of a guide mark for us. There you go. Once you're happy it's drilled deep enough, you can then move on to a larger drill bit and keep working the size up until you're happy with the amount of material removed. So with this now we're going to go to a 2.8, is it? 2.6. Not quite the largest bit. And we're going to widen the hole. So just very carefully, right into that guide hole we just drilled. And we're going to slowly work on it. Check it. Drill a bit more. Check it. Until we're happy. And then we'll put the larger bit in. And fully drill it out. It's a nice little step. Adds a bit more realism to the car. And it looks a lot better. A little bit of black paint in there or a black wash at the end. And it really does look a lot better than the standard part. So there we go. I think this is a 2.8mm drill bit now. This is the perfect size for me. I do have small tools to this. I've got Tamiya's drill and a little drill, but they can be a little bit harsh and rip the plastic apart, so I prefer to do it by hand with the hand drill. The Tamiya pin vise is excellent. Very high quality, and there we go. That looks a lot better now. Fully drilled out. We've thinned the sides of the exhaust as well, and it looks a lot better now. So once all the parts are cleaned up, we then need to start mounting them for spraying. Now there's several ways you can do it. I've got my ways of doing it, and I'm going to quickly run through how I do them. So I got this small micro detailer from Micro Mark. I've also got the pin vise as well. Just going to pop my bit away. I've got a small bit in there. I think it's about a 0.3mm bit. And we're going to pop a small must be a 0.1 into the pin vise. So if you've got a pin vise, do it by hand. If you're looking to have a tool like this, it saves a bit of time. But you just got to be careful of what you're doing. So what we do on the back of the disc, right into the rear of the caliper, we're going to put a small hole, not right the way through. There we go. And then we're going to get a cocktail stick, push it into the back, and there we go. That is mounted for spraying. Because it's in the back, you'll never see it, and that's easy enough now to paint. Parts like this, where they have little holes in for locator points and gluing points, we get a cocktail stick, cut off the very end to make it a little bit thicker, pop that in. There's another part mounted as well. So you can have various parts and different ways of mounting, and as you get through them all, you'll figure out which is the best way for each part. Now, parts that already got holes in are ideal, because you just carefully, not with any pressure, lightly push it in, and that one's ready to go as well. If you go too far, you will split the part, so you don't really want to do that. And then the same on the exhaust, we can pop a cocktail stick in there. Now, the likes of suspension, I like to drill through on an angle through the hub where you're not going to see it. I shall show you now. Right in there. So you will not see that once the car is assembled. There are holes through the hub, but they are a little bit too big for the cocktail stick, so I'll just lightly drill through. It doesn't matter if you go all the way through, because there's an indentation on the other side as well. We grab our cocktail stick. Pop it through, and again, perfect. Mounted perfectly for spraying. No bother at all. Now, some parts will need a bit of CA glue, because there's nowhere to drill or nowhere to mount cleanly, and that's it. There we go. Okay, another step you don't have to do, but I think it improves the appearance, is every one of these suspension struts has an injector pin mark inside the coil spring. So a little bit of work with a knife and a file, and these are pretty easily dealt with. So that's a Tamiya large knife. We're going to use the Tamiya small knife, just because it fits in a little bit with a fresh blade. In my opinion, the best knives you can get for modelling. Used every single type before, Swan Morton, X-Actos, so on and so forth, and I always found the Tamiya better. So as you can see on this one, the lug is half and half, so we're just lightly pressing down on our knife to remove the most of it. There we go. As you can see, we just chopped it away, and that's it. For the most part, it's gone. We're then going to grab one of the Suji Burrito files. These are the very high quality files we sell at UMP, but you can use a sander, you can use paper. I just like these because of the angles, and they're very precise. Hopefully I'll come back in shot in a second. Say, doing things live on camera, you don't always think of the camera. So there we go, on a slight angle, hardly any pressure at all. These are very, very sharp files, they're really high quality. And we just keep removing it away until we're happy it is all gone. And then we can get a buffer in there. There we go, quick fingernail check. We're coming with the angled file now, just to double check. And there we go, for the most part cleaned up, bit of dust in there still, but we can get rid of that later with our trusty toothbrush. So coming with the buffer now, well, we're going to sand the sponge first, just on an angle. Don't go mad with that because it will remove the contours of the spring, but we just give it a quick go in there to clean up. Then we come with a thinny buffer, blue side first, flip it around, and then we'll do the white side, and that's it. Do all four of these, and the springs will look a lot better. The springs aren't all that visible on the car, but I still think it's a worthwhile tip to do. Like I say, grab your trusty toothbrush. Mine is a Mickey Mouse one. It's an old toothbrush for my little boys. It's my excuse anyway. And we just give it a quick clean inside to remove any more dust. And there we go. Job done. Spot on. Perfect. Okay, so we're over in the spray booth. All our parts are mounted on my U-Star foam backing. I love this because, look at that. Perfect. Don't fall off. Holds them in there perfectly. And we're all ready to go. So, for the most part, these are going to be primed in UMP black primer. Some will be primed in UMP yellow primer, which will become a bit more apparent a little bit later on. But for now, this will be spray it in black. So get the black primer out of the heated water. There you go, there's our UMP black primer, and that's going to be going through the UMP apex at about 25 psi. Okay, so we've got the black primer in the airbrush, test spray, and we're going to spray our exhaust. So quick clean off, and then 2 thin coats, building up as we go, making sure we get all the angles, and building up slowly. So a lot of angles to get on the exhaust, make sure you cover it all well, and once you've sprayed it, pop it in the holder, like so. Job done. Okay, so there's all the main parts primed in black. Now we're going to deal with the suspension part. So I like to do the springs in red. The colour callouts call for blue, but for my case we're going to do them red. So we're going to prime them in UMP Gelb yellow primer. Sadly we no longer have this colour because the manufacturers changed the colour, so we no longer stock it. But if you're looking to have it, it's a very good base colour primer for red. So the colour callout calls for blue, but I prefer the red colour. So if you're going to follow the callouts in the instructions, I would probably prime in white. Of course you can still base colour and then brush paint later on, but I just found it a bit easier to do it this way, gets a better finish and looks better in the long run. So we're going to evenly coat, as we've done on the other parts, with the yellow, build it up slowly until we're fully covered. So with everything primed, there we go, they're all primed in yellow, all the main parts are primed in black. We're now going to get some base colours down. So what we've got here, we've got Tamiya X18. That has been thinned with Mr. Hobby Level and Thinner, and Mr. Colour GX3 Red. Now these are pre-thinned and stored in these little dropper bottles to make life a bit easier. Thinned about 50-50. We're then going to use AK Extreme Steel on some of the metal parts and AK Extreme Aluminium. So like I said, what I'm doing, I'm taking the bottle Tamiya and Mr. Hobby paints and thinning them and putting them in these little dropper bottles with a shaker ball, and it makes life a bit easier and quicker. These are the main colours I use for a lot of painting on the car. So they're a hand, they're pre-thinned for speed, and I just like doing it this way. So we're going to paint up the springs. We're going to slowly build up the colour. So you can use any red at all, or blue, spraying it in blue. But I like the GX colours as some of the base colours that I use. They spray nice, they self-level well. And like I say, pre-thinned with Mr. Hobby Level and Thinner. They're dry nice and quick as well. As you can see, there you go, the coverage over the yellow is immense. Really fast and really quick. So there's all the parts painted red. They will be allowed to dry and we'll mask them up for spraying later on. Now we've got the Tamiya X18 semi-gloss black, which we're going to check our instruction colour callouts and see what is going to be black and what is actually going to be metal colour. So a quick look through. This is for me, not really you guys. And what we'll do, we'll separate up all the parts that are going to be metal and all the parts that are going to be black and spray them as we go. So a quick look in through the instructions and we'll separate the parts as required. So some are going to be semi-gloss black, some are going to be aluminium, some are going to be steel, and some will need detail painting later on. So once we've separated all these parts, had a good look what's what, we'll then get to work spraying them. Always use your instructions as a reference. So what we'll do later is we'll mask up the red springs and come back and spray them gunmetal. But for now we're going to let them dry fully whilst we paint these other parts. As you can see, separate them into batches of colours and it makes life a little bit easier. So we've got some X18 pre-mixed from our bottle in the airbrush, and we're going to start spraying some of the components. So a couple of light coats should do, just enough until you get that nice semi-gloss sheen, which you'll see when the parts are dried. Work your way systematically through all the parts you've got, spraying it, making sure to get all the angles as always, and get that nice semi-gloss black that the Tamiya mix gives. Like I say, having them in these dropper bottles, very very handy, and you can pick these up on the likes of eBay for £4 for about 20, and they're the same bottles I use for storing my decanted Tamiya paint once it's been off gassed. Like I say, work your way through the parts until they're all painted. Like I say, some are going to need detail painting later on to pick out specific areas or different parts of them, but we'll cover that in a little bit. Once we're done with the Tamiya, we give the airbrush a quick clean out using some UMP airbrush cleaner. Quick squirt in, give it a brush round, a backflow, repeat, job done. Spotless airbrush that'll perform every time, no issues at all. And obviously different paints can need different cleaners. Once we move on to the metallic paints, because they're enamel, they're going to need some enamel cleaner, which I use cellulose thinner. But for the acrylics, so on, I use our UMP cleaner. So you can see a backflow, tip it away, spray it away into the airbrush cleaning station. Give it another squirt over, another backflow, and as you can see, that colour cup is immaculate now. Give a little spray onto the cloth, spray it away, and we should have a perfectly clean airbrush ready for our next use. And there we go, spotless. Pop that away, keep a little airbrush cleaner in there, put it in your stand, and the next time you come to use it, it'll be ready to rock and roll. Okay, so we're going to spray some of the AK Extreme Aluminium. Just move our camera into shot. Give it a good shake. Now these are enamel metallic colours. So they do take a little bit longer to dry, but because of the self-leveling properties of enamel, you can be a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't have to be exact when spraying them. You can spray a little bit more than you think, and they don't really bite you in the backside at all. These are my go-to colours. Now I used to use Alcalad a lot, but just find them too finicky on some of the colours, and there are a lot of the colours go off in the bottles as well. So the AK Extreme proven very, very tough and resilient, and very, very easy and forgiving to spray. So we're going to spray up this transmission in the aluminium, building up lightly as we go around. Like I say, if I remember rightly, AK's video actually showed spraying these directly onto plastic, hosing it on, and it still went down, no problem at all. I had to spray it over our UMP primer, just the normal stuff, not the gloss. You only really need the gloss primer for high shine finishes. And whilst we are going to get a good shine, it's not really a true high shine. So in this case, just lightly build it up as you go around. Again, paying attention to all the angles. We're probably at about 20 psi. And just building it up slowly. You'll see the colour gradually build and build and build. And then it won't build anymore. And that's when you're done. I normally find about 3 light passes all the way around will give enough coverage to give us that beautiful colour we're looking for. Okay, once we've done all the parts in aluminium, quick colour change, bit of cellulose thinner. Cleaned away as we did before, and this is the airbrush station I use, it's the Mr. Hobby one. So a little nozzle on top, spray your airbrush in until it's empty, job done. I will run fully through all the colours used on everything later on. It's just obviously for the purpose of this video, we'll be literally here all day, never show every part being painted. So we've got some AK steel next, that we're going to spray things like the brake discs, exhaust, so on and so forth. Like I say, I'll try and do a full breakdown a little bit later on of what colour was used where. But basically, it's usually the discs, exhaust, and some of the suspension components are done in steel. There we go, generous amount in the colour cup. Still 20 psi, and we're going to start painting up the exhaust. So this was primed earlier on. And again, nice big part to paint. Making sure we get all the angles again. I know I keep repeating the angles, but it's very, very easy to miss. And you literally paint it, think you're done, clean out your colour cup, put it away, come back, and you've missed a part. So it's worth bearing and paying attention to it. It's very easy to miss colours, especially when you've been painting for a long time. You can kind of get colour blind to it and think you've covered it, come back and think, oh my god, who painted that? So just spend your time, build it up slowly, and as you can see, they are lovely colours, they really are nice. I think these and the Mist Hobby Super Metallics are my favourite metallic colours. They just cover so well, so quickly, and really fuss free as well. And although you're not supposed to put enamel washes over enamel paints, I do, as you'll see later on, and no issues whatsoever. As long as you let them cure enough, there's no drama whatsoever. So we're going to go around, paint all these parts in steel, and once we're done, we'll come back. So I just thought I'd quickly show you my spraying area. It's quite nice to see where people work. I think it always associates people to the person you're listening to or watching. This is my spray booth. It's a Benchvent A300S with a self-built foam board surround. Now I used to have all my paint in here and everything on shelves, but they were harbouring dust, so I got rid of them. So it vents out through the wall up there, through that big 4-inch hose to outside. Up on top out of the way, there's all my decanted Tamiya paints. We've got a paint stand, my Badger Sotars over there, my respirators there on top of my bottle warmer. As you can see, that's a baby bottle warmer I used to warm up the primers. There's all my regularly used paints, some of primers, the metal colours, those decanted bottles of X18, etc. Some cotton buds. We've got my tools, some of paintbrush for cleaning the airbrushes, paint mixers, my Badger paint mixers, my Apexes, my airbrush cleaning station, airbrush cleaning backflush, some Tamiya tape, my Mr. Hobby bottler opener. All handy tools to hand, just to make sure everything's where I want it. We've got all my thinners and cleaners over there, as well as some pipettes over in the corner. And as you see underneath, we've got supplied kitchen paper, plenty of that. We've got my airbrush cleaning kit, some spare gloves, my Sparmax 610 compressor, which is a fantastic piece of kit. You see, my spare filter material, because I make my own, and a set of drawers. So in the top one, we've got D-tack cloths, we've got paint filters, spoons for testing paint, masking tape for putting the paper on the paint booth. In there, we've got empty bottles, lids, medicine cups, and then the bottom, we've got a supply of UMP primer. And as you can see, the floor is well and truly splattered from spilled paint, but that's just what it is. In this top drawer, we have all my gloves, my 2Ks decanted, all my extreme metals, my super metallics, Mr. Hobby buffables, all my alclads are up over there, as well as the spare AK Extremes, and all my other spare paints are up there as well, as you can see, up and down over there. Sorry about the shaky camera, it's quite hard to show everything. In here is the drawer I was talking about earlier, where I put things in to dry or keep them dust free. So when the bodies are painted, that's where they go. We've got the bike ferns at the back there I need to get to, and in the bottom of here we've got some spare spray mask filters, 2K, decanted 2K, spare cleaners and so on and so forth. And over here we have my OCD collection of Tamiya TS sprays. As you can see, I've got quite a lot on there. There's about 50 odd cans, but it's one of my go-to paints. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I like to have it at hand. My zero paints are over there on that shelf at the back, but I do prefer the Tamiyas, if I'm completely honest. Unless it's a specific colour match, I will stick to the Tamiyas. So there you go. My light over the booth is a Chesto triple tube lamp. As you can see, I've got plenty of room in there, and it's easy to clean out and keep dust free. Okay, so here's one of the brake discs after being painted with the AK Extreme steel. Now we need to mask off this centre part to paint it a different colour, and then we're going to brush paint the caliper as well. So to do that, we're going to use an Alpha circle cutter to make a template like this, to mask it and cover the centre. We'll then spray it in gunmetal to give a bit of tonal variation from the disc, and do it that way. So there's two circle cutters from Alpha. The large one at the bottom is too big for this, it won't go down small enough, so the smaller one at the top is the tool we use. So we've got some Tamiya 18mm tape. We're going to take our cutter. We've already figured out the size by measuring with a ruler and getting an approximate and a couple of test pieces. So we're going to lightly score around, let the knife do the work. It's a razor sharp blade in there, and cut our perfect circle. As you can see, we're then going to grab one of Tamiya's craft knives, which are absolutely superb. I love these knives. And we're going to take off the very edge and just give it a straight edge right the way down. And then this should peel off, and hopefully, with a little bit of luck, should fit right on the disc. So if we take out the cocktail stick from the back, you can see now why we flatted one edge. So it fits in that recess. Going to take a couple of test fits to do. Once we get it on one side, move to the other. It's probably going to take a few sticks and unsticks to get it where you want it. There we go, use our tweezers. Again, Tamiya, all my tools are Tamiya. I absolutely love Tamiya tools. Been using them for a long, long time, and hard to find anything better. They're not always the cheapest, but quality tools are never cheap. So there we go, we just lightly push it in around the edge of the rim of the disc. And there we go. Spot on. We can now spray that in gunmetal. We can do the caliper as well, and then we'll come back and brush paint it later. Okay, we've got our suspension strut we primed in yellow and painted red earlier. We're now going to mask off the spring here and spray the rest of it in gunmetal. So for that, we're going to use some of the Azu tape we sell at umpretail.com. Excellent tape. I use this a lot. You'll see it later on when we're masking the windows, especially. It's 0.4, 0.7, 1, 1.5, 2 and 2.5 mil. For this case we're using the 2 mil. So find the end, cut us a little piece off. And then we'll start at the top of it. Find our top point. And then just slowly bring it round. Wrapping it around slowly till we've masked the entire spring. If you're not happy, take it back off, reposition. It's low tack tape, so it won't pull your paint off. Well, it shouldn't if you painted it right. But if you're unsure, you can always de-tack it just to make sure. And there we go, spin it all the way around till you get right to the bottom, and again make sure you get right up to the edge you want, and then just wrap the excess round and we're good to go. They can all be done together, and then we can go to the spray booth and paint them gunmetal to suit. Okay, so we've done some work off camera. We've painted up some of the components on the chassis. As you can see, I've done quite a bit of work off camera because there's a lot to cover. We painted all the front of the engine in silver and the prop shaft, which is Mr. Hobby Aqueous H8 silver, and the front radiator intercooler as well. And then at the back we painted this part and part of the engine in Mr. Hobby H28 metal black, which is one of my favourite colours on the cars. I use it a lot. It's all been brush painted, a couple of coats. It was thinned with MLT, which is Mr. Leveling Thinner from Mr. Hobby. Just a drop in a small bowl of the paint, and we detail painted the parts. We also detail painted up some of the other components on the car as well. So we've used the same H28 metal black on the drive shafts themselves, and then we've used Vallejo black model colour on the CV joints and thinned with a drop of water. So anything that's black is Vallejo, and anything that's a metal black is the Mr. Hobby. And again over there the same again, a bit of metal black on the ends and Vallejo black in the centres. The transmission, we've put a little bit of metal black in places just to give it a bit of detail. Excellent colour, it really is one of my favourite colours. Like I say, I'm going to try and cover all the colours we've done. Like I say, there's our rear spring shock absorbent drive shaft. So the red's there. The actual suspension arm itself has been done in AK gunmetal. Again, a lovely colour. And then we've done the drive shaft in the metal black, and the end of it in Vallejo model colour black. Using a slightly different tones gives a bit of colour tonal variation. It may not be totally accurate, but I like the way it looks. And at the end of the day, it's my model. I'll build it how I want, really. And it's the same for you guys out there. So there we go. This is our disc completed. The outer rim of the disc is steel, AK. The centre is that AK gunmetal we used before. No, sorry, it's not. It's Alclad steel. I forgot. I changed it halfway through. And then the outer has been brush painted in the H28. So you can see a nice bit of tonal variation there. I forgot I used the Alclad colour. So it gives a nice look to everything. And there we go. There's all the parts detail painted. So they were painted X18 in the middle and H28 on the outer edges. Like I say, it may not be totally accurate, but it gives a bit of interest and makes it look less boring. Same here, H28 on the ends and X18 Tamiya on the part at the back. And again, same here as well. So you can use my reference if you wish, or you can follow the call outs and the instructions to the letter. But after painting a lot of these, I've kind of figured out the way I like to paint them, and this is what we do. We're now going to try some of the Tamiya panel line accent colour. Let all this dry for a few hours first to avoid any problems, and then we're going to glue it all to the car chassis with Deluxe Materials Rocket Rapid CA glue. So onto our wheels. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see. What we're going to do is paint our road nuts. So I've done all the others, we just left that one to do. We've got some of the H8 Silver, Mr. Hobby. I'm just going to pick a little dab up on a toothpick and dab it onto each road wheel nut. Quite hard to see the difference in the colour on this, but it's there. If the wheels are white or whatever, you really can't see it, but on this, it is there. You can just about see it, and we'll just make sure. That's it. All four are done. Toothpick's a nice easy tool to use. Job done. Okay, now the tyres, they have a seam through the centre, which should you wish to remove, you can do by using a sander. I will be honest, you cannot see them at all on the car unless you lift it upside down. But if you want to remove it, one of our 220 1200 black sanding sponges is the tool for the job. A quick go over, and there you go, there's 90% of the seam gone. Job done. For me, I leave them on because you cannot see it at all. Unless you lift the car up and look underneath, you can't see it. We've got these decals to apply. I'm not going to bother showing you them because we showed them in the last part covering decaling. Follow those steps and just put the decals on to the outer edge of the wheel. Cut off all the wheels as such. You don't need to be particularly accurate, just get the majority off, and to be honest, you don't even really need to clean them up because again, you cannot see it whatsoever through the tyre. The only time you can see it is if you pick up the car and have a good look. Now, I never pick the cars up. I don't play with them, I don't pick them up to look underneath, so for me, unless you're really meticulous, give the wheel a clean up, and just bear in mind it's an unpainted surface left behind, and you will remove more colour with sanding. So there we go. The tyres are directional. The instructions cover which way they go. So keep in mind, 2 are going to go one way, 2 are going to go the other. As per the instructions, there's the decal we need to apply, just one little decal, and these are the directions they go. So 2 will go one way, 2 will go the other. Just make sure you pop them on the right way. You've got 2 of each, and you can't really go wrong. As you see, they go one side to the other, and it's that simple. The tyres simply push over the top. Make sure you got them orientated the right way. Gently push them over. Make sure your clear coat, whatever you've used, is fully cured. Otherwise the tyre will rip it off. And there we go. There's the tyre on. It's a case of putting the decal on now. Job done. So we've got our Deluxe Materials Rocket Rapid CA glue. A little pot for dispensing some CA glue into. Just put a generous amount in. Just what you're going to use in the next 20 minutes or so. We've got a cocktail stick, which is going to use as an applicator, and the chassis on all the parts required. And all we're going to do is apply a dab of CA glue where all the parts go, follow the instructions, and glue all the parts on. So parts like this, they will friction fit and don't really need gluing at all, from my experience. There we go. And we just locate locating points, visually check them, use your instructions as reference, a little dab of CA glue on one end and a little dab of CA glue on the back of the engine. A couple of dabs each side, one on top. Slide it in place, push it on, make sure it's fully home, and there we go. Perfect. And all we're going to do is follow the instructions and systematically go around and glue every single part on, being aware of orientation, which way around things go, and making sure we get the parts in the right place. So go through the order and the instructions, double checking the mounting points. It's easy to put the glue in the wrong place. Just ensuring you get things A, in the right place, and B, the right way around. It's very easy to install some of these parts the wrong way. A lot easier than you think to do, to be honest. So double check, make sure it's the right way. Glue it in place and just push it home gently. And there we go. We'll carry on with the rest of the car and come back when we're assembled for a wash. Just one final point before we speed on with the build. The polycaps. So they insert in each wheel hub, like so. They're quite a tight fit. There you go. Pop it in. This is what holds the road wheels on. So they go in the hubs, and then the right brake disc fits over the top, like so, and holds it in place. So again, double check the instructions. Make sure you've got orientated right, facing the right way, and the right discs, and glue them in place. Don't get any glue in the centre part of the polycap, right in the middle, because that's where the wheel goes. You don't want to hinder that at all. And again, double check you've got everything the right way. Make sure any locating parts are in the right place. Put it together and give it a squeeze. And there we go. There's the disc on the hub. 4 of those to do in total. Once you're done with those, you're good to go. Okay, we've sped through the construction. As you can see, this part caused to be painted black, and we've got this plate to put on as well. That'll be done last, the plate. I don't bother painting the black again because you can't see it. It's a lot of fiddling, masking to spray it. And we've got these panels to put on later as well, and again they'll go on at the end. But with regards to painting that panel, if you don't mask it properly, it's not going to look great. It's a very fiddly part to mask, and hand painting it, I think it's going to look terrible. So I choose not to do it. So we've got some of the Tamiya panel line accent colour. These are enamel washes. You can make your own washes should you wish, such as this one made out of oils. Your preference what you use, but I like the Tamiya ones. They're enamel, they dry a bit quicker than the oils, and the coverage is good as well. So you can, any wash that you do use, make sure you give it a really good shake to mix it up. I've got shaker balls in all my washes. It helps agitate them and get them flowing well. So the Tamiya comes in the same kind of bottle as their glue. It's got its own brush. And like I say, once I did a good shake, it's ready to go. I like to wipe it off a few times because I find otherwise the brush is a little bit too highly pigmented to begin with. And then we're just going to apply it to every recessed and raised area on the underside, transmission, suspension, so on and so forth. If you want to do the rest of the chassis, by all means do, but I just think it doesn't look great on the chassis. It looks good on the working parts, and it's literally, if you can see a raised or a recessed detail, add a dab of the wash until you're happy it's all covered, and just go around. Don't flood the area if you can help it. It's quite hard to do sometimes because you can load the brush up, and we just go around the entire working part, adding a wash. And once it's dry, usually overnight, it takes a while to dry because it's enamel, we'll come back and wipe it off with some cotton buds and a bit of odourless mineral spirits. So the brake discs require a bit more attention, as do the suspension springs. You can't really see the springs that much, but you can see the discs through the wheels, so I had to pay a little bit more attention. Make sure to get all the outer and inner rims of the disc, where we masked off earlier, all the grooves that are in there, the cooling grooves, well not cooling grooves, but the grooves to keep the disc fresh. And on every part of that central hub is a little bolt, raised head. So don't worry about getting it too far, we'll be able to remove it all later on, but just make sure you get it in, and again making sure any recessed or raised detail has wash in it, and then we'll come back and remove the excess later on. So it's the next morning, and there we go, all the wash is dried. As you can see, it's everywhere where we wanted it anyway. We'll zoom in and have a little look. As you can see, all around the discs, it's all in the recessed areas, lovely. All in the springs and what have you. And now we're going to get some Santador, or Santa Odor, which is the Winsor Newton odourless mineral spirits. Apply a little bit to a cotton bud, wipe off the excess, and then we're going to work away removing the excess wash. Now, got to be careful you don't rub too hard because you will burn straight through the enamel. A little bit out of shot, story of my life. And just work the cotton bud around, removing the excess wash. So we've got some of the Tamiya cotton buds as well, a little bit more mineral spirits on it. And then we're going to work right up to the edge of the hub. Now we're getting a little bit tighter with these. Just gentle, we're not putting any real pressure on there. As you can see, all the excess wash from the centre part has gone now, leaving it around the raised detail and in the recessed grooves in the discs. Also, the wash will stain it a little bit and give the metal a bit more of a weathered look. A little bit more on the other side. And we give the caliper a go over. Again, just removing the excess, leaving behind the wash in all the recesses. And that will give us a nice look. And there you go. Nicely weathered discs, showing some of the detail off. Absolutely beautiful. Using fresh cotton buds quite regularly, with a little bit of the odourless mineral spirits on. We'll go around all the parts, removing the excess wash. You'll see it come off. Like this part, you'll see it come off now. There you go, it's gone. There's all the excess gone. And it leaves the wash in the recessed details. And just gives a little bit of detail and impact to the part itself. Like I say, don't rub too hard. The AK streams are very resilient. But if you do rub hard enough, you will take the metallic finish off. Once you start getting a bit of a saggy cotton bud, I like to go around the parts again, because the saggy cotton will pick up some parts you missed earlier. But yeah, don't go mad. Just get off all the excess you can, leaving behind all the lovely surface detail showing through. I use a combination of standard Johnson's cotton buds and the Tamiya cotton buds as well. Now, while the Tamiya cotton buds might not be the cheapest, they're a bit of a luxury. The shapes and how tightly bound they are makes them pretty invaluable for me. They can get in all the areas these larger ones can't, and I find them really useful. So we're onto the front radiator / intercooling. It's a radiator, this one. And we're just going to go around until we get all that excess wash off, leaving behind a little bit of a washed detail, because again, it's a part you can see through the front grille. And there we go, all done, all the excess wash removed, all that beautiful detail showing through. So there we go, all done. Discs look very nice, the underneath looks lovely as well, really shows off those metallic parts now. Slightly different tonal variation between the different colours, and they really do look part of the part. We've got a couple of the wheels on. I've not put them fully on because we've got to take them back off in a bit. As you can see the discs through the centres, and they do look rather smart. And like I say, adding that wash really does make a difference, and it brings it alive. Very happy with that. All these different metallic colours look nice together, and they give a nice lot of tonal variation. Right, so there we go. That's where we're at today. So all the running gear's done, all the underneath's completed, bar a few of those plates that need putting on, but we'll put those on near the end. The wheel's going to come back off, like I've said, just to save any damage when we're doing the interior. And that's it. So like I say, we're back in part 6 for the interior. We'll cover everything I can in the interior parts. And that's it. Hope what I've shown today proves useful and helping anyone build along with this build. There we are. So there you go. Check out ISM, Facebook page and forum, International Scale Model. They're both free to sign up to. Well run, well admin. No one wants to critique, no idiots on there. And it's a very, very busy page and forum as well. Check out umpretail.com. It's myself and Lee's business. We've got all sorts on there. Just started stocking Tamiya stuff not long back. So we've got some of the kits, tools, etc. We've got washers, primers, sanders, tools, all sorts of stuff over there. Head on over there and have a look. All the links for these are in the description down below. You've got my personal modelling page, Paul ISM. All my modelling work goes up on there. You've got the Hangout modelling group. Literally, it's called the Hangout modelling group, where the Off Air Hangouts are held. All you need is a webcam, a mic, and a Google Plus account. You can join our Hangouts, where we sit around electronically over the web and model and have a laugh and a joke. We've also got a Friday night show, which is like a Hangout, but it's live, and it's a bit more well behaved in there, should we say. So we've got the Live at the Bench page as well for the live show. And yeah, and that's it really. So there you go. So I'll see you next week. It'll be same time, same place, next Sunday. And we'll come back and crack on with that interior. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.